All right. So here we're covering kind of what cities look like and the theory behind that. And for this last lecture, so we did the housing prices, we did kind of the theory of where things are. This last lecture, we're going to look at local public goods. So public goods are things that are non-excludable and non-rival. And some of them are provided by the national government and some by the local government. Sorry, my son's eating over here. If you hear someone eating, that's Big Dean over there. All right. And so neighborhoods are going to differ according to a couple things. There are some things you can't change, like the neighborhood amenities, or rather, you can change them, but they're somewhat fixed. Like, is there a stadium? What is the local crime rate? And then there are the local public goods and the quality of those goods, like the amount, and then the quality. So, how many parks there are they well maintained? Do they have lots of nice things in the park? Then there's the police and fire and the relative quality of the police and fire. Those are the public goods that we think of. Education is also sometimes considered a public good, although it's technically not a public good because it is excludable and rival. But it's also included, and we're going to do education in its own lecture. Okay, so public good, for those of you who don't remember micro economics, is basically anybody can access it. So like a park, anybody can go walk and use the park. You don't even need to be a resident of that area. Now, in the traditional sense, the private market is not going to provide a public good because there's no way to charge people for it, or it's difficult to charge people for it. I would have to put a big old fence around the park, have like a gate, that sort of thing. Or it's just inefficient to charge people for it. Like theoretically, you could kind of charge everybody every time they needed to use the police, but it would just be an inefficient system. And so with public goods, so with the private market, you have a market, you have competition, you have firms competing to get to the efficient outcome. With a public goods, basically the government kind of has to provide a certain level, and they may provide the appropriate level, they may not provide the appropriate level. It's hard to kind of gauge, what are the preferences and then align those to the preferences. With a private good, everyone knows their own preferences and they're acting in their own self-interest. With public goods, it's much harder. Okay, so the typical ones at the local level, we have the police and fire protection, parks, and then ensuring clean air or water. This is more of a common resource, but we're going to put it under the public good category. Okay. And as I mentioned, it's usually much more efficient to kind of have these done at the municipal level rather than the individual or household level. Like theoretically, everybody could have like their own private bodyguards, and in places where actually the public goods have broken down and the government's not good at providing them, essentially this is what the wealthy do. They actually have their own kind of private force. Okay, so we're going to think about, all right, but how does this work how does this function in a usual setting? And as usual, we got like a pretty simple model to figure this out. So we're going to take the example of police, and we're going to say, look, these are each person's valuation of police. Some people want, lots of police. Some people want less police. Or you could even have someone who wants no police over here with it just zeros all the way down. Okay. Well, we're going to say these are A, B, and C's different valuation of having police. So, they value that first police officer at these numbers. The second one at these numbers. Dean, you are eating so loud. All right, hold on. We'll take a break here, and then while I deal with this, and then we'll start back up in a second.